Oh, so what are we supposed to be talking about?
Tonight's supposed to be times we got beat up at a show or got in a fight at a show, I think.
Uh-huh.
I keep saying it wrong. You had a better way of phrasing it.
Me?
Well,
Yeah. Or
Um,
maybe it was you, Danny.
sounds
I don't know.
sounds right.
I think it can. I don't know. It can be any sort of physical altercation at a show. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Loosen up, because mine isn't necessarily me getting into a fight. Me is just getting kicked in the head.
I just wanted to point out my Clint Howard thing that I've got going on here.
It's nice.
You know Clint Howard?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to be a Clint Howard impersonator?
We call it Tranya.
So I guess my beat up at a show story, the one of them I have, I guess, or the one I'll tell you, is really early for me. It was probably 1986 or 87. I was actually online this weekend trying to figure out, because I know it was Agnostic Front at the City Gardens.
Well, I
always
think any
thought
show at
in-
the City Gardens resulted in a fight.
He had just met, and I think it was CB's.
So I always thought it was opening up for Slayer and Megadeth, but when I looked at like an archive of City Garden shows, Agnostic Front never opened, but I saw GBH like the spring of 87 maybe, or late winter of 87, and they opened up for GBH. So I'm thinking that's the show where I got beat up. I couldn't remember. I think I took a little brain damage, but it wasn't even that much of a story. Agnostic Front was playing, and I was in the pit, just sort of not really knowing, I guess, that I wasn't supposed to be, because nobody told me. But Agnostic Front started playing. I hopped in the pit with all the skinheads, and had more hair back then, and it was longer, and just got pummeled to the ground. I don't even know what happened to me, but I just got like slammed, and I was on the ground on my back, and I looked up and I could see this dude standing over me, and his boot just like coming at my face. And then some dude just grabbed me and like whisked me away just in time. And the only thing I can really remember is that the guy looked like Daddy Warbucks.
I think I know him.
That wasn't the incident with the American flag?
No, that was when we played at CB's.
Oh, I get those two things mixed up.
Yeah. That
Tell
was
that one.
that was okay. Well, that was kind of an interesting afternoon, I guess. CBGB's Hardcore Matinee. Not sure of the year, maybe around the same time. I think I had some issues with skinheads back then, and it was when Roger was still in the band, so I wasn't even the singer yet. We were still a four-piece. And for this one song, Real American, we switched. He played the guitar and I sang the song. And it was just a stupid fucking throwaway song. It was, Hulk Hogan had that song, I'm a real American. I don't know how it went, but I just sort of like took the idea and decided to make my own version. And just makes fun of shit. And I guess somebody had an American flag or something, and I was in the middle of the song. And I looked up, and the skinheads had grabbed the flag off the stage, this little American flag, and they were all marching around in a circle with like going Zig Heil and shit. And as it went by, I snatched it and threw it on the stage and just ground my boot into it, nice and firm like, and made sure I left a good impression. And I looked up, and it was just like 100 angry bald heads coming at me. and the bouncer there was this dude. I can't remember his name, if it was Mike or something like that. This big dude who used to bounce also at the Ritz. And I just kind of knew him from being around. And he just like grabbed me by the waist. Now, I didn't weigh much back then. And just like carried me off the stage. And we all got like locked into one of those back rooms. Remember like those back rooms? If you walk down the hallway, they were like right on the right-hand side. Like you go left for the bathroom.
Mhm.
They're on the right.
The dressing
He
rooms.
just threw us all in. Yeah, the dressing room. So he threw us all in this room and then just basically put his back to the door and just held it. And you could just fucking hear mayhem out there. Like, I don't know what the fuck was going on, man. But apparently the cops had to be called and the place was cleared out. And by the time we were finally let out of that little room, which seemed like forever, the place was pretty well empty except for like the staff and stuff. And as we were getting our stuff and walking out, and the security guy was like helping us and stuff, Billy Crystal was sitting at the bar and he's like, "You fucking guys are never coming back. You're banned." And I said something back to him like, "Go fuck yourself. I could give a shit if I ever come back to this shithole again." And that was kind of the end of the story, except that like 2 years later, we played there anyway. So I don't know what a ban at CBGB's actually even means. So I guess those are my two stories.
I think it means they sell your spot when you go outside to go to the bathroom.
I think it means you make poor. I think it means you make poor judgment and rely on the kindness of strangers to save your ass at the last second.
Yes, you know, I strike it up to just being very impulsive sometimes. And like, you know, I guess both stories were kind of like just not really necessarily understanding my surroundings and just diving in.
Yeah.
Someone else go.
So mine's kind of like that, less skinheads and more, you know, upstate New York. So,
Mhm.
The metalheads?
yeah, we'll get there. So I had this, you know, back, you know, just after high school, I was in this band called Leprosy. And we were like, you know, 80s thrash metal kind of band. And our drummer broke both of his wrists in a stupid pit. It wasn't even a good pit. It was a stupid pit. But that's beside the point. So we were like pretty much on the bench for a couple months, and we were like, well, our one guitar player, he used to play drums a lot, and he could still play, and he could do a boom chim bubba chim kind of thing. So we're like, all right, let's put together a really shitty band, and let's go play this crappy club that we played all the time. It was like a 16 and up non-alcoholic nightclub. Bill played there once. We got him that show, I think.
That's where I met you.
Yes.
At a leprosy show. Yeah.
Yeah, except that by that point, we were so persona non grata, we had to play under a pseudonym of Casey and the Sunshine Death Band.
That was the show I was at, actually.
Yeah, so
I vaguely remember a band called Leprosy when I was in high school, probably like 83, 84. Is this what you're talking about?
84, 85, 86? No,
Right.
80, 86, 87, really.
I vaguely remember seeing a
Okay.
stick. Was there a sticker with like squiggles coming off? Like, you know, like that kind of.
I had not figured
grapefruit
stickers
looking
out yet,
stuff?
so probably not.
Okay.
I have this book called All Known Metal Bands, and there's like 32 leprosies in there. So
Yeah, well, right.
you know, it's like everybody's like, yeah, leprosy. Yeah. And anywho, so
Did
we
you
were
make
like,
the book?
no, but I got it for my birthday. I'll show it to you guys.
33.
Like, so we're like, okay, so we put this really it was basically the same people, swizzled around a little bit, did a bunch of GBH covers, wrote a couple of trashy songs, and we called it Vatican Hit Squad. I did a beautiful logo for it. It's still one of my favorite, like kind of like paste letter logos I ever did. So we play this show, and our drummer, in his freaking casts, he introduces us, and he's wearing a black sweatshirt, and he's got a piece of masking tape right there. And he's like, I am Father Todd. The Lord is my shepherd. And I think he had a Bible or something that looked Bible-ish. Could have been a dictionary. Who knows? And he fucks sheep. And he starts tearing pages at it. And we start playing. people lost their fucking shit. Like in between songs, just one guy was like, "I'm from the Hyde Park Bible School and I'm gonna kick your fucking ass."
They're at the punk rock metal show.
Yeah, that's I'm the
That's you.
yeah, that Bill's pointing at me. That's my friend Camillus. Will, who's flipping us off,
There's the
he
drummer.
played drums, and Todd, the real drummer, he was the broken wrist. Yeah. So they had to call the sheriff's deputies because like there was this mob that was ready to kill us, and people are throwing shit at us. And I was like, in the middle of this, I'm thinking like, didn't Jello Biafra say something like, if they're not throwing folding chairs at you, you haven't got their attention? I'm like, I think we got their attention now. So we got escorted out after that with like plenty of death threats, and that one was cool. You know, in the end, nobody got hurt badly. I mean, I think like a friend of ours who's quite large was kind of like pummeling people as they tried to rush the stage. But I didn't really see any of that. So, you know, Mike, thank you for if you did anybody who's trying to kill me, you know.
How did the guy in casts fare? Did he use those as weapons in like some sort of like martial arts thing, or did he just
I think he was high and he was drunk at that point, and he just flailed around a lot, and like, and so our friend Mike was literally like, just, you know, I'm just out of high school. They're still seniors in high school. He was like 6'5", 300 pounds, and he didn't look like muscle, but he could just pick people up and toss them. And he like, he loved Todd and was just like, nobody fucks with Todd. So he was there. So it's probably like human shield around Todd. Like, Todd, keep dancing.
Well, I'll go next if you want, since
Go for it.
Bill is the only one who's actually like in a fight, I think. I mean, mine weren't.
I'll get around to telling that one.
For
I could think of one altercation, but it wasn't really a fight.
well, right. I mean, I guess mine were technically fights, but like I didn't really get to participate because for whatever reason. So I think the two that I can think of were both at Fugazi, I think. And the one might not have been Fugazi, I don't know. The one was the one I told you guys about when we came up with this topic, where it was the Anthrax. And I think Mario drove, and Merritt and I were drinking, we each had like a 6-pack of Tall Boys, and we drank it on the way there. And nothing to eat. Whatever band we were there to see, it might even been you guys, Dan. Especially if Merritt's there.
Once, as far as I remember.
Huh?
We only played there once, as far as I remember.
Anyway, so we're messing around in the pit, and people don't like us, or, you know, we're slamming and stuff, and I'm slamming, and I'm going around a circle, and I come around the circle like the second time, and pow, somebody gets me like right under the rib cage, and I just go down, and I spend the rest of the night throwing up. So that was one, and it was just a sucker punch. And the other one was a sucker punch also, was where this was definitely Fugazi, and I think it was at like Bard or Marist or something, because they got the good bands. And I had my Youth of Today shirt on, but I turned it into it said Airport Skins on the back, and it had a picture of like a daisy that I'd drawn on there. It said, "My name's Ray," with like a flower. So I don't even know how I got that Youth of Today t-shirt. I think you guys gave it to me like it's a goof. Do you remember that thing? So again, I'm just being myself.
That's hilarious. I wish I did. That's the best.
I'm being myself. And the next thing I know, somebody's like spiked wristband thing like is in my eye. And I'm like, I'm standing there like this. And then while I'm standing there like this, like somebody punches me in the jaw. And then like I'm seeing stars, and while I'm seeing stars, like somebody gets me in the stomach. And I never see them. Didn't see him one time.
Making friends everywhere you go.
Right?
Yep. And that was it. Those are my stories.
And
All
they
right,
both
so-
happened at Fugazi?
I don't think the first one was. I forget. Because if Merritt was there, it must have been when you guys played. You guys must have played there because Mario definitely drove, and Mario wouldn't like just go to a show
Not usually, no.
of his own accord unless he was playing.
As far as I know, yeah.
Right.
I can't think of any bands that he would like go out of his way to see at that time,
Right.
unless it was Metallica.
All right, so I'll go after after you guys refreshed me what the topic was. I'm like, I haven't really been in any fights, but I do remember, if you want to call it a fight, this would have been 87. I think, Grundy, you might have even been there. The band I was in at the time, we were doing a show in, I think, Gardner, New York. And
Ooh, I mean,
after we were done, it was a party, and we were done. Everybody hated us. We had loaded up our guitar player Dave's car, and he's backing down the driveway. No, Grundy's shaking his head. No.
It's
But-
my car.
Oh, it was your car. I thought Stork's car was the one that got hung up on the bumper there.
Oh no, so I was there too. I had a car full of shit, or no, maybe I had a car full of people. That's right. Dave's car got hung up
Yeah,
on
I'm talking
stuff.
about the altercation.
Yeah.
So Dave's backing out. It's down a steep hill, going slow, and he ended up like his front bumper clipped the back bumper of one of the cars that were parked, and didn't do any damage, but it was kind of stuck. And Dave had like a 1970 something Dodge Aspen with 3 on the column kind of thing. So he stopped. The owner of the car was there, and he was cool, and we are trying to figure it out. And then some guy comes out of from off to the side and just comes over and clocks our singer. You guys are leaving. You guys hit this car. You guys are just leaving. We're like, dude, the owner's right there. So the guy's friends separated him from our singer, and I saw him coming to charge at him again, and I just kind of like leaned back and gave him a nice little karate kick to the chest, and he fell down and he got up and tried charging again. So I kicked him again.
No, you've
So-
studied martial
But that
arts.
was
Your instincts.
that was 80. No, that was I did when I was younger, when I was a teenager. So I would have been probably a couple of years removed from taking lessons. But that's it ended at that. Everybody was still cool. The guy went home probably with a sore chest, but nothing else really came of that. That's the only like altercation that I can remember I was in.
See, I remember
A couple of others.
where I remember this starting was because I knew Dave got hung up. I knew the guy was there. I knew it was cool. I didn't see Timmy get hit. I remember shouting, and I turn around and I see you in the air sideways, boom,
Oh,
into the dude's chest.
Oh.
I was like,
it's a little different.
we gotta go.
It was purely, it wasn't even self-defense. It was defending Tim, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, you're
Because I didn't want him to
you're-
get
you're trained, and
blindsided.
you just click.
I wouldn't consider myself trained. I mean,
bet
it
that
was sure it was a reaction and all, but I've lost those kind of reflexes because I don't even
When
think
that guy
about that anymore.
came out of the woods, I'll bet the last thing he ever thought was going to happen was you leaping through the air and kicking him in the chest.
Well,
Oh man, you guys are making it sound more heroic than it actually was.
Well-
I barely remember the altercation though.
I remember I think I was blocking Dave at that point. And I drove my car basically into a ditch, and half of us had to like walk miles and miles, hitchhike to Highland to finally catch up with those guys, to get a ride back, to get Chris's dad to get his truck and pull me out of the ditch.
Oh yeah, yeah.
oh my God, all that pre-cell phone crap.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lordy.
Well, I think we didn't realize you had gone in the ditch because I think
No,
whatever car
because
I was in, we took off and you had come and backed out, but you that's when you fell in a ditch. We had no idea.
The
Yeah.
best one was you, Dan, you definitely were here for this, was when our friend Steve, who was like, you know, he liked punk rock, but I wouldn't say he was ever like really in. You know, he had like the yin yang necklace and like long hair and a goatee and stuff. And
He did what got him laid.
yeah, right. And so he wanted to cut. Fear was playing the East Coast like for the first time, if not, you know, I think they played a few times back when they were together originally, but then they had just gotten back together. Its original lineup, first time they're ever playing East Coast, like ever since my being aware of them. And it's like them, the Dwarves, and I forget who else was on the bill.
Oh, Elvis Hitler.
Elvis Hitler, right? So the Dwarves were actually pretty. The pit was pretty violent, and Steve is like, "Well, I want to go up front." I think he went up front for the Dwarves, and I was like, "Dude, have you seen some of the characters that are up front, man? You don't like." There was a guy. I clearly remember this guy. He had Anglo tattooed on the back of one arm and Saxon on the back of the other. I was like, I'm not going up there. Don't go up there. It's like, no, I'm going up there. So the Dwarves are over. I run into him. He's like curled up in a ball, like it Ritz, you know, like over on the side somewhere. And I'm like, dude, what happened? He's like, like what? He's like, and I look in his mouth, and the whole like left side of his teeth are like folded over. And he's like, well, what do you want me to do? Because we rode down there with Vinny, right? We took a van. And, you know, what was
Yeah, that's right. Vinny had rented that van.
Yeah, right. And like, if I was driving, I would have given him a ride home. So I set him up with a shot of Jim Beam, and I left him there, and I went and enjoyed the rest of the show. And then he was miserable the way home. And then we got back to my house. I drove him to the hospital after you guys went home, and then drove him back home. Called his mom, and
that was a weird night all around.
Oh man! But the weirdest thing was he had a perfect
budget.
He had a perfect imprint, like you could read it on his chest. It said Doc Martens, like on his chest, like through his shirt. What's that say?
Jesus.
Code Stimmermans.
So I remember him coming to the house like a week or two later, just all wired up, like just could not talk. And
yep.
Yeah, he was unhappy for a while.
Yeah.
So I got another one that I'm going to need to rely on Danny to fill in the gaps.
Holy cow. Good luck with that one.
This was, Dover Boys were playing. Grundy, unfortunately, you were with us at this particular point. We were playing at a party at, I forget his name, but the drummer from Poor Excuse at his house.
I was there. Yep.
The mega party.
And Depot Road.
Oh,
we arrived.
Park?
Well, we played two of those parties.
Oh, okay.
One in particular, I remember we had this guy Tom playing bass for us. We got there really early, and I was drinking. I barely remember us playing. I remember three things about the show. One, I couldn't hold on to a pick for nothing, and I remember you standing right next to me, just feeding me picks, like every 30 seconds, handing me another one of your picks, handing me another one of your picks. I remember at one point being so drunk that I fell down and I rolled down the hill because we played on top of a little bit of a hill.
Oh,
and I remember
that spot, yeah.
And I vaguely remember a fight breaking out, and I remember I think it was either the drummer from For Excuse, or maybe did he have a brother?
Yes.
It might have been his brother, came up and rushed at Tom, our bass player, who was playing, and just saw this guy coming in fist first and lifted his bass up and kind of did that. And the guy ended up punching his bass square on. And I don't remember. I don't know.
Because because I know those guys, because my brother used to live in that house.
Uh-huh.
And those guys were the cousins of the woman he married. And I feel like he had to go get stitches.
Well, if you're going to punch, I mean, base is a pretty heavy piece of wood. So if you're going to punch one
Right,
square
but
on,
the strings,
sure, yeah, I was going to say, if you're going
Yeah.
to punch one square on, you're going to do some damage. So,
right?
but I don't know if, well, Charlie, I didn't realize you were there too. So if I don't know why there was a fight,
I
where there
think
was a
that's when I
fight.
met all you guys.
So
We
I'm
now we
not
had known them.
sure.
We had known
I
them
don't know. I don't
because I
remember
was
the
really good
fight.
friends with Demaine and Mike. Like,
Yeah, but I had never met you and Tim.
oh,
and,
for you guys, meeting us, maybe, yeah,
yeah, and I met
I
what's
think I do remember you rolling
Rob.
down the hill though.
Brian
yeah, Rob,
Brian Hay.
Right.
Ryan Haywood
Yeah.
probably would have been there as well, yeah. And so here is fights at a show. I'll tell the story of a friend who was in one of the bands that I was in that we may or may not have already discussed. We were at the Chance in Poughkeepsie. Social Distortion was playing. There were a bunch of us went, and one of our friends was super drunk and getting in fights, and security came. This is when Social Distortion was playing. Security came, took him by the arms and escorted him out. Our other friend, who was responsible for the really drunk friend, was like, whatever. And he kind of just chucks his beer over his shoulder and goes to follow his other friend out, knowing that he's going to need some help or a ride home or whatever. Well, when our friend chucked his beer over his head, it ended up hitting Mike Ness square in the forehead as he was playing. So Ness stops playing, stops the show, singles Tim out. He's like, him, and security runs and grabs our friend by the arms. Ness jumps off stage as the two security guys, one is holding each arm of our friend.
That's not fair.
Ness clocks him, and security takes him, drags him. It was wintry. I remember there being snow on the ground, and our friend telling us the story of how like they just kind of heave-hoed him out into the alley, and he went skidding on the ice.
He did say that the punch was really weak. It was kind of like, but he was so pissed about getting thrown out when he was about to leave anyway.
Yeah, that's
because
it's
half,
like I'm
half
leaving
of it,
anyway.
half of it was Derry got thrown out. The other half was like, this is fucking awful, man. I'm fucking out of here.
You would have definitely been there too, Greg.
Oh, I was there. I'm like, they're carrying my fucking roommate out. and a friend of mine who I didn't see in years was like, hey, Grundy. I was like, they're fucking carrying my roommate out on their shoulders.
Now he's got mascara all over his face.
Who's shocked that Mike Ness can't punch? I'm not.
Yeah.
You know what was a big fight problem? Was that fucking blue van I had.
Oh yeah.
Poor excuse.
63
Plus
Dodge.
my blue van, 68 Dodge van, split window in the front. I wish I was a better mechanic back then because I miss that van.
Or you wish you could just read because there was a big sign that said check oil. But anyway.
Well, getting beat up and not like being liked and stuff, that sort of like segues nicely into the other topic of like how you discovered
your roadmap to punk rock.
Yeah. Whether you want to touch on that this go around or not, I don't know if this thing is timed or not.
I was just gonna say that fucking van had more fights in the back of it coming back from Dover Boys shows than any van should have.
So who wants to start this second topic? Which
like that. There's no furniture. It's just open space and gear and human bodies and like all sorts of fucking hijinks happen.
and a thin sheet of plywood separating you from severe road rash.
Oh God, yeah. And not a seatbelt to be found.
Nope.
No, I was just watching Adam 12.
Oh, Jesus.
And they pulled this guy over with like a 5-year-old kid in like this, old Pontiac. Well, it was new to him, but it was like a 70, one of those big boats. And like, no, neither one of them had a seat. I was like, oh, he's going to give him a ticket for no seatbelt watch. It was like, oh, wait, no, he's not. He doesn't care.
Seatbelts were optional back then.
Oh, hell yeah.
I rolled into a traffic stop with that van one time and the guy was like, hey, where's your seatbelt? I was like, it's a 68. They didn't have them. Meanwhile, there's the holes where the seatbelt used to go right here. And
Yeah.
later found out that it was like, that was a couple years before when they were still optional.
Yeah, I had a car like that where I just used to, it didn't click. I just used to tuck it over my shoulder so that when I'm driving by the police, it like looked like it was on. And then I was like maybe I should get this fixed. I don't know. It's there for a
So
reason.
Danny, what was
So,
your
Bill.
roadmap to punk rock? Start when you were young with your, if there was any music played in the house from your parents or your siblings, and work your way on up to
So
when
sadly,
you got beat up
or
at City
not sadly,
Gardens.
yeah, I'll end there. No older sibling that was into punk rock, no younger sibling into punk rock. I was, and still am, the only one. It's weird. I was trying to figure this out over the weekend, and the best I can figure out is, it's oddly enough, here's a callback to last episode. It started with Kiss in 6th grade. And from then on, I just kind of became obsessed with what's heavier than that, what's angrier than that, like trying to like, it seemed like anything I listened to didn't really reflect how I felt about things. Like I listened to thrash metal, and that was great to get drunk and like just sort of rage with, but it wasn't like, so anyway, for me, it kind of went from Kiss to Black Sabbath, because Black Sabbath was the kind of music that I imagined a band that looked like Kiss should play.
Right.
From there, I probably hit like junior high, just listening to like regular 80s metal, trying to figure out, not really liking anything, but just listening to it anyway, like shit like the Scorpions and Accept, like started sort of there, really digging into music, and then found Motorhead before I found anything else, and through my friend Paul. And then I think like the first introduction that I actually had to punk rock itself was, besides like Ramones on PDH when they were coming to town, I guess, would be like real, I guess I'll say real punk rock that's not something everybody knows. My friend Paul used to be able to, from where he lived in Chester, he could pick up, oh, what's the station down in New Jersey? FMU?
Yeah.
He used to be able to pick up FMU at night, and there was like a punk show on. So he would just record it, and then we would hang out and listen to it on cassette. And I can remember, I know the song. It took me years to figure out what the first song was that I actually heard, and it was Destroy the Handicap by Fang. And I could never figure out, I knew, because it just stuck in my head. It's like such an insane thing to name your song and write a song about, Destroy the Handicap, that it like always stuck in my head, but I could never figure out who it was. And I had listened to Fang, but somehow I had never heard that song again. And I only realized a couple of years ago. So it started like just with this insane song that I couldn't quite put together in my mind. Like, what was this music? Like, there was no internet, there was no fanzines for me to find yet. There was not even a Rock Fantasy. And just like me and Paul just sort of listening to this music and not really understanding what it was, but just that it clicked. Like, it was just like, oh, this is what we need to be listening to. What is it? How do we find more of it? We don't even know what it's like, and then sort of like built from there. And then like, as I got older, I could start going to record stores, and probably the first punk album I actually bought myself was a Subhumans album I ran into at like Record City or something at the Orange Plaza. And it was Subhumans Worlds Apart. It was wholly different from everything else I'd been listening to. And I think at that point, I was still in high school, and I realized, wait a second, this is bigger than just being angry. This is like about smarts. This is about knowing the world and understanding things and increasing like your knowledge of stuff. And that got me really excited. Like, it's both things. It's like this unleashed just rage at stuff, but then there's also like these moments of intelligence and thought about the world and society, and like the two things just immediately clicked for me. And it had a name at that point. In the Subhumans, I kind of started figuring things out, and then by then it was like high school, and then, but that's I mean, I found lots of other things but along the way, but like that's sort of the through line to punk rock for me. It was sort of an odd.
You mentioned that record store in Orange Plaza. Was that the one that was downstairs?
Yeah, by the tobacco
That was
shop.
actually a pretty good record store. I've only had been in there a couple of times, but I remember finding a lot of like pretty cool stuff there for being in a mall, you know.
Odd stuff. I got My War there.
Yeah, I remember I picked up like I think the Straw Dogs We Are Not Amused album, and just surprised to find that, like Dead Kennedys and stuff, in a mall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Back then,
I think it was like 10th or 11th grade. I can't remember, but I started
Cool.
like before I left for school every morning, I had to listen to that song My War, and then I just like walk off to school all angry.
Getting primed.
Oh god.
That's great.
Who's next?
I don't know. Who wants to go
I'll
next?
choose Grundy.
There you
Grundy.
go.
All right. This is interesting. I was thinking about this a lot recently because I was like, what the fuck did I listen to when I was a kid? Because, you know, my folks are, my dad's older. You know, it was like jazz and classical from them, except for like the Beatles, Paul McCartney and Wings, one Chicago album, and Queen. And I think Queen had a lot of like influence there. And I was listening to the Wings album that I always used to listen to. I was like, I thought Jet was the heaviest freaking song in the world, and those are saxophones. All right. You know,
Which Queen album?
Night at the Opera, Day at the Races, and Jazz were the 3 Queen albums that we had.
Those were your dad's albums?
My mom's albums.
Wow. And you're my age.
My mom listened to Anne Murray.
I love
John
it.
Denver.
Never mind. I'm sorry.
But for me, the progression was like, I went away to summer camp and they introduced me to Led Zeppelin and Blue Oyster Cult. I was like, okay, this is what I wanted to hear, but this is sounding pretty cool. And then 7th grade, Back in Black came out. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool too. You know, then I started like, I want more of this kind of thing. And a friend of mine got this Dead Kennedys bootleg called Skateboard Party. It's a live album, live bootleg, whatever. I think it was a radio show somebody taped, and he got it at Record City in Poughkeepsie. And I was like, ooh, this. It's funny, it's fast, it's messy. I like this a lot, but I didn't really get it yet. Like I like kind of got like some of the irony. I was like, you know, this is cool, like Holiday in Cambodia, like Chemical Warfare. I get where they're going, you know. But it was, so I was like, okay, I'm a Dead Kennedys fan, yeah. And at the same time, you know, like starting to listen to Iron Maiden and stuff like that, and it's like, but I like this fast stuff. It works with my brain. But when Frankenchrist came out, I was in Vermont. We bought a copy of it at a record store near Bennington, and we're listening to it in the basement of this piano school that we went to in the summer. And I'm reading the lyrics and I'm like, oh shit, I kind of get it now. This is like, it's pretty serious shit. And from there,
Were you reading the lyrics or looking at the poster?
I was reading the lyrics. I had the poster, the penis landscape poster up on my wall in my bedroom, and my mother was just like, what the it was kind of like, okay. I was like, it's art. And she's like, fine.
I know. Especially being a dad now, you're just like, if you saw something like that, you'd be like, oh my God, what the fuck? This kid is, I want to know.
Look, today I got to worry about if they have like blue striped flags and like other like Nazi paraphernalia.
Exactly.
from there, I met some friends. Somebody else gave me like this. I don't know what Sex Pistols album it is. It had the best version of Anarchy on it. I think it was the
Swindle?
Swindle.
Yeah.
Because when I heard the first album version, I was like, "What is this swishy swashy mesh? I don't know what's going on here." But the same set of friends introduced me to the FUs, GBH, and all that stuff, and which was great. And then New York hardcore like got into our brains a bit, and DI from California and some of the other California bands. And I was grounded. I couldn't see Black Flag, but I got Henry Rollins's kind of autograph at Record City earlier that day, right before Greg Ginn's guitar got stolen.
Bill took it.
We'll never tell who did it.
I just saw Suburbia for the first time in like probably 25 years. I think we watched it not this weekend, the weekend before. God, what a fucking awful movie. It's just like, it's literally just random kids from the area. Hey kids, come on, we're making a movie.
Yeah.
That one kid ends up in Platoon.
Oh, really?
The one who reminds me of Rich. The Rich Sanner kind of guy.
I don't know which one that
Blonde
would be. I
leader.
know there's a couple of guys from bands in there.
The leader
And,
guy. The guy with the car.
Yeah, I can picture him in my head, but I can't picture him in Private Ryan or like as a grown-up adult. So
No, Platoon.
Oh, Platoon, sorry.
Yeah.
Bill, you want to go next?
Sure. Grew up, mom huge Elvis fan, my father huge Johnny Cash fan. I still have all their vinyl sitting in a box right over there. I don't know what I was really into, probably whatever, like obviously Johnny Cash and Elton John, but like whatever I would hear on the radio, probably like Billy Joel, Elton John kind of stuff. And then my brother, told you the Kiss story last episode. And from there, I kind of followed in my brother's footsteps a bit because he was into Led Zeppelin and Judas Priest and Queen. We had Queen Jazz. I still love that album. So from there, I remember 7th grade, the librarian was playing this album. It was this kind of neon pink and green cover, and it was the Sex Pistols album.
Librarian?
The librarian in middle school when I was in 7th grade was like, "Hey, check this out, kids." And she's playing us the Sex Pistols.
Hey, I'm
Librarians are the
fired later.
best.
Yeah, these days. And right around that same time, my best friend Chris was getting into punk rock because his older brother was into punk rock, and he was big into the Ramones. I hadn't really listened to him, but then my cousin, I remember being at his house and he had Rocket to Russia and played it for me. I was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome." That was like the hook for me. And I ended up buying that album and probably their first album, and I kind of had it in my collection. And I got into, as the years went by, really into AC/DC, really into Iron Maiden and those kind of bands, and got into Slayer and the heavier stuff. And then in high school, right at the end of high school, we had this kid move in. This kid named Rob had the mohawk. He was into punk rock. He immediately like befriended my best friend at the time, Chris, and the three of us would hang out, and they would always talking about punk rock, the Dead Kennedys and Black Flag and all this stuff. And I'm like, eh. And then it turns out this guy Rob is a drummer in a band, and hey, we're opening for the Dead Milkman over at Vassar. And I didn't go, but anyway, flash forward to very early 1987, maybe even late 86. I get a phone call from my friend Rob, who was the punk rocker that had transferred in. He's like, "You still play bass?" I'm like, yeah, I still play bass. He's like, "Well, we need a bass player." Okay, what kind of music? And he's like, "Oh, this is my punk band." So I went and auditioned, got in, and that's where I met Tim and Dave and the rest of that whole Malefactors crew. This was January of 87, and they handed me a couple of tapes, and one of them was the Misfits' Walk Among Us. and I don't remember what it was a Malefactors tape actually from their demo of songs to learn. And I remember listening to nothing but that Misfits album for like that's when it, beyond the Ramones and hearing the Sex Pistols, hearing the Misfits is what like kind of got me to like dive in fully and explore more about what punk was all about. And finally, oh, I get it, the Dead Kennedys, because I had heard that stuff before. I'm like, yeah, never really connected. But hearing, that's when I actually got into all those bands, and mostly East Coast bands. I never really got in heavy into the West Coast stuff, not until much later anyway.
You were the guys who got me into the Misfits. I mean, I had heard like Earth AD. I was like, all right, but really, like, you got me into the other stuff. The older
Earth
stuff.
AD was like, more in line with like the hardcore stuff that you were probably in sync with at that point. Whereas I think the older stuff from Walk Among Us and earlier was a lot more written in the same vein as Ramones songs, as far as like verse, chorus, But yeah.
I think I was at that Dead Milkmen show at Vassar. I was at a Dead Milkmen show at Vassar when they opened for Dag Nasty.
That was the show.
Yeah.
Dag Nasty, Dead Milkmen, and the Malefactors. I wasn't
Also,
in the band yet at that point.
Grounded for that one too.
Wow, Grounded. Haven't heard that.
Yeah, that was a good time. That was in like some weird little basement room.
Coffee house.
Yeah, it was tiny in there, but it was a good time.
So I guess it's my turn.
Yep.
Sure, Charlie.
Well, I'm like you, Bill. I knew about it. I guess like growing up, my house was like a hodgepodge because I'm the youngest of 7. And, when we were moving up from Scarsdale to Central Valley, my brothers were it was the weekend of Woodstock, and my brothers were trying to like get out of the car. They were stuck in the traffic. And they were trying to get in the car and get in a van with these hippies going to Woodstock. And my dad was trying to like keep them in the car. So, I would say like I grew up in a house where like every genre of rock that was going on, like that was happening. Like somebody was into something. And I think the first thing was like, it was probably around the same time because my sister had gone off to college, my middle sister. And, and about the same time, I think Nevermind the Bullocks had come out, and this kid, Danny Kern, had it in, I guess that was like 6th grade, maybe 7th grade. And Danny Kern was the cool kid because he taught me how to like, how to ditch school and that kind of stuff. And but she came home with like Talking Heads and this band. I think you ended up with the album, Dan, the Tough Darts. Didn't I give that to you?
No, Roger gave me a copy of that because he needed me to learn a song off of there.
I gave it to somebody.
I got a
Oh, you too, Bill?
I'll make it
the
super
guy had
quick.
like wooden teeth or something, right?
I used to work with Roger, and I remember he didn't have any money, and he was like super hungry. So I bought him McDonald's, and the next day he came in, he's like, here, and he gave me a signed copy of Walk Among Us from the Misfits for being kind and buying him lunch the day before.
So anyway, there was that, and so I bought the 8-track, and I remember I bought the 8-track, and I was such like a musical whore that I think I bought like the Knack at the same time, and I might have bought like a Billy Joel 8-track, and the Billy Joel 8-track got eaten on the first play, and I just never replaced it because I was into the other 2 albums.
It's what you get when you get eight tracks for a penny.
Well, this was at the James
expect
Way
quality.
Monroe, where the guy had to come over and unlock it, give it to you, break it out of the thing.
Wow.
Their
8-tracks are high tech there, son.
That's right.
Shoplifters
I had the one with the
looking for these
matchbook.
all the time.
anyway, like from there, it was weird because there's all this stuff circulating in my house, and like I got into this stuff. I got into like when I met Reed, who was my brother's friend, who went on to be in Celtic Frost. He wasn't into any of that stuff. Those guys were all into like jazz fusion, and I got into all that stuff, and just all this weird, whatever. Like if it was weird, and I was into it. And I remember, like I was into the Clash, and my sister and I would have arguments about the Clash versus what's his name, Joe Jackson. Right. And I think around this time I also discovered the Who, and there was like an honesty in Pete Townshend's lyrics that like drew me to him. And then when I finally got into hardcore, it was that same kind of honesty that was there, that when I look back on it now, there was like a current that ran through, like if it like it was speaking to me in this very honest way, like I dug it. And I remember the first thing I ever heard about like Dead Kennedys was there was this other group of guys that hung out in my neighborhood, and we weren't really friends with them. And what was more was the way my high school was stratified was like you didn't cross over. I don't know if your guys' things were like that either, but they were
I
listening.
was a free.
What's that?
I was a free agent in high school. I didn't
Yeah,
really
me
have
too.
like a group.
Oh, well, so they were listening to Dead Kennedys, and I asked them what it was, and then, but I didn't know how to find it. And I wasn't like really, my friends like wouldn't want me to be friends with them. It'd be like some sort of betrayal on that end. So, but I was curious about it, and I just couldn't find it. But like I was into the Plasmatics, like from TV and stuff like that. But I guess it was when I guess I met Ramon at Ock, and he started handing me, he's like, oh, if you like this, you should check out this. If you like this, you should check out that. And then from there, I just started hanging out with you guys, and I don't know, it was weird. It was like, because I don't know, I never really felt like I was ever a punk, because I always felt like I was too square to be a punk, but then I was too weird to be a square. So where does that leave you? Especially in high school, it's not like a very comfortable place to be. So yeah, I mean, it's just really what drew me to it was just that it was honest, the especially like a bunch of you guys have mentioned the DKs. It was more that like you felt like you were finally being told the truth
Yeah.
about something, and even like Black Flag, it was like, wow, like I feel all those things too. That's crazy. Someone else feels these things. No one ever speaks about these things, so that's what like really drew me into it. That's about it.
Cool. So
Mhm.
we are right around an hour, right? Ish.
Yeah, this
Are
might
any
get
of
cut into
these
2
up,
episodes.
Grundy?
Yeah.
Are any
You
of these
guys
up? Are any of them up?
Well,
What?
we'll talk about that after we're done with the actual
Oh,
episode. Did we
Production
want to?
oh, I didn't know we were being so formal.
All right, go for it.
What?
So that's it, right?
Whatever you were saying. I don't know. I was
We're
gonna
done,
ask
right?
if you wanted to do the rapid
Right.
fire
Lightning round.
question,
Oh, rapid fire.
lightning
Oh, you
round,
want to do the question?
if you want to.
Who did we get? Yeah,
I've
okay, let's
so far I have not asked Grundy a question.
I
I
didn't
think
know.
there
Yeah,
should
because I
be.
don't think I've asked Charlie a question.
Okay.
I don't remember who I've asked.
I don't think you
I
asked
haven't asked
me.
Bill a question, or I haven't asked Dan
Yeah,
a
you did.
question.
Yeah. All right,
I asked
Grundy.
Grundy a question.
What was your first bass?
Oh, it was, we called it the POS special. It was an SG copy. I
Oh,
still have
yes.
all the pieces of it. It had, the headstock was glued back together. It sounded awful. I bought it from a guy I knew who played bass, who got a real bass, and he was like, yeah, I'll totally, $50. Yeah, I'll totally sell you that for that much. And I was like, I'm finally a bass player for real.
And to follow it up, your favorite instrument
Like my favorite bass that I ever had,
or any instrument?
my Rickenbacker, hands down.
Cool. All right,
It's older than my wife.
Danny, ask Charlie a question.
Oh boy. Phew, Jesus. Damn it. Okay, I got one for you, Charlie.
Okay.
If you could design an album cover for any band, what band would you want to design an album cover for?
Anybody. For money?
That's what I said, any band.
Anybody that pays.
I do have to say, I like the aesthetic of the Freedom Hawk album, that black and white one. But
No clue.
God, that's a tough one. I don't know. There was a while there, like in junior high, where I thought, like when I first started getting stoned, I was like, be cool to like do the Santana albums, you know, like you get baked.
Do peyote, draw some pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
I think
Charlie, question for Dan.
Don't ask me the same question.
No. God, it got me kind of, I don't know whether to like ask something embarrassing or
Ask me
Something-
anything. It's an AMA.
Something you don't know the answer to. All right, we'll come back to you.
yeah,
Grundy.
come back to me.
Grundy.
So I'm asking you, Bill.
Yes.
So, what is the best DIY adventure you've had so far this month, year? DIY. Do it yourself.
Well, yeah, I know what that means. I would have to say the D&D
DIO.
campaign that I'm running with Charlie and some coworkers that I just made up a story and ran with it, and most of it being improv, and we're now even out of the little bit that I did prepare. So that's
Cool.
basically the only DIY thing I've done. Other than building miniatures for a Kickstarter I just got.
Every band you've ever been in is DIY.
Yeah, but I haven't done any of that this year.
That's true. God, we have not been together this year, have we?
No.
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 All right, I got it.
All right, good.
What was the name of that roommate you had in your first semester at OC? Not OC, New Paltz.
Scott.
What was his name?
Scott.
Night
Dude.
man walk and psychopath talk. That guy.
The dude with the long black hair.
No, he had
The
black hair.
bodybuilder guy.
No, the guy with black hair who used to sing
That's what I said.
the.
Long black hair. He was a bodybuilder guy.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
Worked
His name was
Yeah.
Scott. All right.
Scott. I think
I
so.
like
Yeah.
I like how we're all asking each other personal questions, and Charlie's like, "Danny, what was the name of your roommate again?" Okay, got it. Thanks.
I found out later that Scott became a New York City Fire Department firefighter guy,
Oh,
and now he's out on disability. Yeah, he was alive last I knew. I forget his last name though. I can't remember, Scott something, but he drove that ridiculous bug, that beetle that he had, that I convinced him to buy one afternoon because I was bored. Oh man. It sucked for him.
Okay, so.
All right, so that's
All
all the
right.
questions, right?
All
I
right,
guess that's it.
everybody say goodbye to the internet.
Good night.
That's a
Yeah,
wrap.
we're not hanging
Bye.
up.
We're not hanging up. Bye.
Right.